In the misty valleys of South Africa's Western Cape, mountains cradle winding rivers. From here come stories of faith, resilience and community that have endured for centuries. In Genadendal and Mamre lie quiet streets and historic mission buildings. They whisper of people who journeyed far from Europe to plant seeds of hope in a new land. This is the world of the Moravians, where every stone, every bell, every gathering tells a tale of devotion, courage and cultural legacy. Long before the Moravians arrived in South Africa, their story was already unfolding in Europe. Their roots trace back to Jan Hus, a Czech reformer of the early 15th century, who challenged the Church to live with greater honesty, simplicity and devotion. His followers, often persecuted, became known as the Bohemian Brethren, united by a shared commitment to a personal, heartfelt faith. Centuries later, in the 18th century, a charismatic and visionary young German nobleman, Count Nikolaus Zinzendorf, offered these scattered communities a new home on his estate. Under his guidance, the Moravians became one of the first Protestant movements to emphasize worldwide missionary work. It was a faith defined not by grand cathedrals or titles, but by community, music, and a relentless desire to bring hope to distant peoples. And it was this spirit that would carry them all the way to South Africa, where Georg Schmidt would plant the first seeds of the Moravian mission. Schmidt was born in September 1709 in Kunewalde in Moravia, now part of the Czech Republic. Raised in a peasant family, he experienced a deep conversion to Christianity at the age of 16. Inspired by the Moravian tradition and driven by a calling to serve, in 1726 Schmidt journeyed on foot to Herrnhut in Saxony to join the Moravian community led by Count Zinzendorf. Before he ever reached Africa, Georg Schmidt had already paid a heavy price for his faith. As a young Moravian preacher in Central Europe, he was imprisoned for 6 years for spreading the gospel outside the sanctioned church. Yet confinement only strengthened his conviction. In 1737, newly released and full of purpose, Schmidt set sail for the Cape Colony, the first Moravian missionary to South Africa. He arrived with little more than his Bible, his tools and a deep belief in saving souls. He travelled inland to a secluded valley called Barvianskloof, the Valley of Baboons, where he began his work among the Khoi people. There he built a simple hut, planted fruit trees and a small garden, and lived as they did. He learned their language, taught them to read and write, and introduced them to a faith rooted in compassion and dignity. It wasn't easy. Many settlers mistrusted his closeness to the Khoi, and some Khoi themselves were wary of his message. Still, a small fellowship formed, men and women who prayed, learned, and worked beside him. In 1742, Schmidt baptized 5 local converts, among them his cook and housekeeper, Magdalena. It was a quiet, deeply symbolic act, but it sent shockwaves through the colonial church. The Dutch Reformed authorities declared that Schmidt had no right to baptize, no authority to treat Khoi believers as equals before God. Accused of defying both church and colonial order, Schmidt stood firm, but after 7 years of tireless ministry, preaching under a pear tree, the pressure became unbearable. In 1744 he was forced to leave Barvianskloof, leaving behind his books, his orchard and a grieving community. Almost 50 years after Georg Schmidt's departure, a chance encounter at the Cape rekindled interest in the Moravian mission. In November 1792, the Moravian Church sent 3 missionaries, Hendrik Marsveld, Daniel Schwinn and Christian Kunel to re-establish the settlement at Barvianskloof. Guided by local Khoikhoi, they found the remains of Schmidt's house and the pear tree beneath which he had once taught. A pear tree still grows there today. Among those who greeted them was an aged Magdalena. For nearly 50 years she had kept the New Testament Schmidt gave her and continued teaching and praying under the same pear tree. On hearing that the missionaries had come to continue his work, she replied, "Thanks be to God." Her treasured Bible now rests in the Genadendal Mission Museum. Life at the mission was difficult. Food was scarce and most Khoi had little to their name. Yet hope returned. The missionaries taught farming, crafts and trade skills. Converts were given small plots of land and built livelihoods through hard work and faith. Though some traditional customs were discouraged, a strong community spirit grew. In 1806, after visiting the mission, Governor Janssens renamed Barvianskloof Genadendal, the Valley of Grace. Despite opposition from the Dutch Reformed Church, which tried to restrict their worship, the Moravians persevered and built a thriving, self-sufficient community. They established workshops, producing chairs, leather goods, and the famed Herrneuter knives, exported across the Cape and beyond. Genadendal soon became a centre of education and culture. In 1837, the village acquired a Gutenberg printing press, the only one in the Cape able to print music, and began publishing books and periodicals. The following year, the Moravians opened South Africa's first teachers' training college, offering instruction in languages, music, crafts and theology. A public library soon followed, marking the height of Genadendal's golden era. After 1860, industrialization brought decline. The college was forced to close in 1926, and the printing press finally ceased operation in 2003 after 170 years. As we step into Genadendal, the story of the Moravians comes alive in every corner of the village. The mission house stands as a testament to early communal life, where missionaries planned their work and welcomed visitors from near and far. Crossing the old bridge over the Sonderent River, you can imagine Schmidt and his fellow missionaries walking these same paths, carrying their vision of faith and service. The cottage museum preserves the simple domestic life of the early settlers, offering a glimpse into their daily routines, furnishings, and personal belongings. At the heart of the village, the church rises quietly yet proudly, a place where generations gathered for worship, music, and fellowship. The village bell, still in its tower, would call the community together, marking time and ceremonies alike. Nearby, the old house within the mission complex reflects the early living quarters of missionaries, while the church office holds records and documents chronicling decades of dedication. The information centre now welcomes visitors, providing context and stories of the Moravian legacy. Genadendal's watermills, preserved across several sites, recall the practical skills taught by the missionaries, grinding grain and sustaining the settlement with ingenuity and labour. The Veda Guest House, one of the oldest guest houses, offers a living link to the village's hospitality traditions. And beyond the core of the village, the surrounding Barvianskloof reveals the natural beauty that cradled this community, a landscape both protective and inspiring to all who lived here. The success of Genadendal inspired the Moravians to extend their mission beyond the Drakenstein Valley. In 1808, under the guidance of Moravian missionaries Johann Friedrich Korhammer and Johann Heinrich Schmidt, the Mamre mission station was established on the outskirts of the Cape Peninsula, 30 miles north of Cape Town and 90 miles northwest of Genadendal. It had the full permission of British Governor Lord Caledon. The site, originally occupied by the Dutch East India Company's military and cattle outpost, Achlunakluf, founded by Governor Simon van der Stel in 1679, provided a suitable location for missionary work, with existing buildings and a nearby Khoi settlement. Nestled amid rolling hills and fertile plains, Mamre rises quietly, its mission buildings and churches standing as testaments to years of dedication. From the early 19th century, the settlement became a haven of faith, learning and community, where every path, cultivated field and stone structure whispers the story of lives shaped by devotion and perseverance. Under British administration, the settlement continued to grow, carrying forward the Moravian vision of education, spiritual life and cross-cultural engagement. The church lies at the heart of the mission. It stands as a testament to over 2 centuries of devotion and community life. Inside, the simple yet elegant interior reflects the Moravian emphasis on humility and worship, with wooden pews, plain but beautiful altars, and sunlight filtering through tall windows, illuminating generations of prayers and hymns. The building still hosts regular services, concerts and ceremonies, making it a living centre of faith. Every corner, from the pulpit to the bell tower, tells a story of dedication and the enduring spirit of Mamre's people. Surrounding the church, the mission house served as the residence and administrative centre for the missionaries, and also supported the educational activities of the community. Nearby, the Kleiner Post, once a military outpost, has been converted into a parsonage, linking the past to the ongoing spiritual life of the community. The village bell still rings out across Mamre, calling the community together for worship, work and celebration, echoing the rhythms of life established by the early Moravian missionaries. The Winkel, the mission's historic shop, dating back to 1880, once served as a hub for trade and daily life. Today it has been lovingly preserved as a restaurant, allowing visitors to experience a tangible piece of Mamre's living history. The historic watermill, carefully restored and now housing a local museum, recalls the practical skills taught to sustain the community. Its large mill wheel, still visible today, demonstrates how water power was harnessed to grind grain, turning the flow of the Sontarent River into the heartbeat of daily life. The wheel's motion, once vital for baking and sustenance, connects visitors directly to the labour and ingenuity of Mamre's early settlers, making the mill both a functional and symbolic centrepiece of the mission. Other historical features include the slave tree, a living monument to the lives of those who laboured here, and the historic bakery, complete with a replica outside oven, preserving the culinary traditions of the early settlers. Every building, every path, and every restored site tells a story, not only of the Moravians who founded Mamre, but of the generations who have lived, worked, and worshipped here, keeping this unique heritage alive. And it's not just Genadendal and Mamre. The Moravian Church is still going strong all over South Africa, with over 100,000 members worshipping from the west coast to Gauteng. From Moravia to South Africa, the Moravians carried a vision of faith, learning and community in Genadendal, Mamre and beyond, leaving a legacy of resilience, devotion and human connection still visible today. And among all the missionaries who came to South Africa, only one can claim the distinction of being first: the Moravians.